Story is an often misunderstood aspect of fighting games, treated poorly by the community who play it and an afterthought to the people who make it. While most fighting game stories are globe-trotting anime adventures or poorly thought out attractions for casuals, fighting game lore is a fascinating thing to some and an embarrassment to others. I happen to fall into both categories, so join me as I regale you with some of the many stories told to us from fighting games. The King of Fighters is an interesting series, collecting some of SNK's best and most popular franchises and putting them all together into a 3-on-3 team-based fighter. While it never reached the popularity of its rival Street Fighter, The King of Fighters is still a celebrated piece of fighting game history, being especially popular in Japan and numerous South American countries like Brazil. One thing people have always praised The King of Fighters for is its stories. Infamous sagas spreading across multiple years and games, some of the best narratives in the entire fighting game genre belong to SNK. With the Orochi saga and Nessus Chronicles arcs behind us, it's time to move on to the third arc of the KOF series, titled Tales of Ash, and starring the mysterious anti-hero Ash Crimson. If you haven't watched my previous videos on the King of Fighters series, I highly recommend doing so by clicking on the link above. It's worth noting that some games in the King of Fighters series are labelled as Dream Match games, and thus do not have a canon story or a prominent part of the series narrative. These games are KOF 98, 2002 and 12, so I won't be talking about these games in these videos unless I have to. With the King of Fighters 15 finally revealed, I think it's as good a time as any to go through the entire King of Fighters series saga by saga as a means of refreshing old players and informing new ones on the crazy world of KOF. It's been 2 years since the King of Fighters 2001 tournament that saw the rebellious agents of the Nessus criminal cartel fight back against their creators and destroy the organisation as well as its leader Ignis. After 2 years of relative peace, mysterious invitations are suddenly sent out across the world, marking the beginning of the King of Fighters 2003 tournament. Advertised as a return to the conventional 3-on-3 system that was used in tournaments prior to Nessus' involvement, competitors are told to look forward to the addition of a tag system that allows team members to swap in and out of combat at will, shaking up the usual dynamic of battles. Most interesting of all, however, is the signee of the invitation, going by the familiar name of R. Interest in the identity of R erupts, with many convinced that the host of this year's tournament is none other than the black market weapons dealer Rugal Bernstein, who hosted the 94 and 95 tournaments, until meeting his death in the latter tournament due to him being unable to contain the Orochi power. With the advent of a new KOF tournament, fighters across the world reunite once again to answer the invitation. Terry Bogard and Joe Ageshi reform the Fatal Fury team, but Terry's brother Andy Bogard is unable to join them due to him taking care of his ill student Hokurumaru. Needing a replacement, Terry turns to an old acquaintance in the professional wrestler T-Zoc, who gladly accepts. The three enter the tournament together as the new Fatal Fury team. The Art of Fighting team returns to its formation from the 96 and 97 tournament, consisting of Ryo Sakazaki, Robert Garcia and Yuri Sakazaki. Also unchanged is the Ikari Warriors team, once again consisting of Leona Haidern, Ralph Jones and Clark Still. The Women Fighters team is again made up by King and Mai Shiranui, who are now joined by Blue Mary, who is hired to investigate the mysterious force behind the new KOF tournament. The Korea Justice team consists of Kim Kap-won and Chan Go-han, and are joined by Jun Hoon, who returns from his injury to replace Meili Jinju and Choi Bunj. The Japan team returned to the tournament, but is now made up by Benimaru Nikaido, Goro Daimon and Shingo Yabuki. After her allies see Kensu, Chin Gensai and Bao leave on a year-long training exercise to study the dragon spirit, Athena Asumiya is left without a team for the first time since joining the tournament in 94. After becoming acquainted with sumo wrestler Hinako Shiju, Athena considers forming a team with her, but the two struggle to find a third member. They eventually meet the mysterious Malin, who offers to join them but is turned down due to neither Athena or Hinako wanting to team up with someone they don't know. Wanting to prove herself, Malin steals Athena and Hinaku's hair ribbons without them knowing. Convinced that she'd make a worthy addition, they accept Malin's offer and make up the high school girls team. Having ignored the last few tournaments, Geese Howard returns his attention to KOF and once again orders his subordinate Billy Kane to investigate it. To Billy's horror, Geese orders the insane Ryuji Yamazaki to accompany him, despite their last encounter after the 97 tournament when a rabid Yamazaki attacked Geese and Billy. Needing a third member, Geese coerces the mysterious Gato into joining them. Gato, wanting to protect his family from harm, agrees to join the team, though he despises Geese and his teammates for their lowly ways. The three make up the outlaw team and enter the tournament. Spending their time in hiding after destroying nests, K-Dash, Maxima, Whip and Cooler Diamond are met by Chin Gensai, who asks them to investigate the tournament in his place due to him feeling a dark wave of energy surrounding it. Deciding to accept Chin's request, K-Dash, Maxima and Whip drop Cooler off at her handler Diana's home and enter the tournament as the K-Dash team. Returning to their status as single entrants, Kyo Kusanagi and Iori Yagami abandon their former teams and enter the tournament in the hopes of settling their long-standing rivalry. In addition to the 9 other teams, a 10th team make their debut in the 2003 tournament. Keeping his origins to himself, the unknown Ash Crimson convinces the equally mysterious Duo Lon and the brash street boxer Shenwu to join him in the tournament, despite the three having no prior history together. Despite the cautious air around the identity of this year's sponsor, the tournament at first goes on as normal. Having been on a dominant run the entire tournament, the Ikari Warriors are invited on board a large airship where they are promised to compete in the tournament's finals. Upon entering the airship, the Ikari Warriors are met by a young woman who introduces herself as Rose and welcomes them to Sky Noah, the airship they're currently on. To the shock of the Ikari Warriors, Rose is the daughter of none other than Rugal Bernstein and the R who is hosting this year's tournament. Rose is soon joined by her brother and Rugal's son Adelheid, who asks the Ikari Warriors if his sister has offended them. Rose then tells the Ikari Warriors that they are to fight her brother in the finals of the tournament, though she confidently promises them that Adelheid will win. Adelheid takes on the Ikari Warriors but is ultimately defeated by them. Rose is shocked by Adelheid's defeat and vows to not let the Ikari Warriors leave Sky Noah as punishment for their victory. However, Adelheid demands Rose to land Sky Noah and return the Ikari Warriors to Earth. Rose tries to convince Adelheid that he is wrong and that he should fight again, but Adelheid nobly accepts his defeat, telling Rose that to fight over and over until he is victorious is pointless. Once the Ikari Warriors are ejected from Sky Noah and the Bernstein children leave, Ralph and Clark show their disappointment in them getting away, with Clark saying that they must be getting rusty. As the two prepare to leave, they notice that Leona is acting strangely. To their shock, the riot of the blood within Leona suddenly activates, returning her to the feral version of herself that first showed itself at the 97 tournament. Ready to help their friend and teammate, Ralph and Clark rush at Leona, though they know the fight will be brutal. Sometime later, Leona comes to her senses as she sees a beaten and bloody Ralph and Clark by her feet. The two are glad Leona is okay, but ask her to report into command as they are too exhausted to do so. A guilty Leona radios for the Ikari Warriors to be picked up, while showing concern at the riot of the blood within her being stronger than ever. Having been eliminated from the tournament earlier, K-Dash, Maxima and Whip prepare to leave when they are met by a mysterious woman who performs a strange spell to summon an evil version of Kyo Kusanagi based on his appearance during his fight with Orochi 6 years previously. The K-Dash team take on the evil Kusanagi and are able to destroy it with a powerful super move. The mysterious woman congratulates them on destroying Kusanagi and claims to be the real sponsor of the tournament. The host shows interest in the K-Dash team's power and wishes to see if they are the chosen one by taking them on in a fight. The host uses another spell to teleport the K-Dash team to a mysterious location where she introduces herself as none other than Chizuru Kagura, the host of the 96 and 97 tournament, the holder of the Yata Mirror, and one of the 3 sacred treasures that defeated Orochi 6 years ago. As Chizuru introduces herself to the K-Dash team, she is joined by an identical copy of herself, which she explains is a power given to her by the Yata Mirror, as was the case with Kusanagi. The copy of Chizuru takes the identity of her deceased twin sister Maki Kagura and helps her take on the K-Dash team. Despite the combined power of the Kagura sisters in the Yata Mirror, Chizuru and Maki are defeated by the K-Dash team. As Chizuru cradles her sister, a vision of a string being cut appears above her as Chizuru falls unconscious. A mysterious woman then appears behind the Kagura sisters, knowing that Chizuru appears to have reached her limit after using her power to fill the emptiness of her sister's death. The K-Dash team question the woman as to who she is, but she only identifies herself as those who hail from his distant land. The woman is suddenly joined by a hulking giant of a man named Mukai, who offers his thanks to the K-Dash team for defeating Chizuru and breaking the Orochi seal, which the K-Dash team discover is their current location. Intending to use the Orochi power to fuel their master, Mukai and the woman, called Botan, use this year's KOF tournament with the hopes of someone defeating Chizuru and breaking the seal for them, which the K-Dash team have now inadvertently done. Mukai then decides to take on the K-Dash team, wanting to see if they are worthy of being able to face the new age they wish to bring, but despite his mystical powers and great strength, Mukai is ultimately defeated by the K-Dash team. Even though he lost, the K- team are shocked to see that Mukai is unharmed from their fight. Claiming that time is beginning to flow towards them, Mukai teleports the K- team away from the Orochi seal, but vows to meet them again along with the rest of his group, who reveal themselves as those from the past. The K- team are teleported far away from the rest of the KOF tournament and wonder if they escaped by themselves or if they were allowed to escape. Deciding to make the most of the situation, Whip wonders if they can use the help of a certain kid and calls Diana, who is still keeping watch over Cooler. Diana tells Whip that Cooler thought the others had left her behind after leaving for the tournament and has been pouting ever since. Whip apologises to Cooler and fills in Diana on the situation behind this year's tournament. Diana shows slight interest in the matter, saying that it doesn't sound like it will benefit her organisation, the remnants of those still loyal to Nests. Deciding to think on the situation, Diana notices Cooler spying on her and tells Whip that Cooler's interest is also piqued by the matter. Whip decides to bring Cooler along with them and tells K- and Maxima that it's time to go pick her up. The two notice that K- is more distant than usual, as K- continues thinking about Mukai's words before briefly losing control of his flaming glove. Knowing that the issue is not with his glove but with the root of his power, Maxima and Whip tell K- that he can't escape his fate and can only push forward. K- and Maxima head out with Whip to pick up Cooler, picking out the nickname of Princess for her. With the tournament now over, the rest of the teams involved in the competition wrap their business up before going their separate ways. Having been knocked out of the competition earlier, Ash Crimson, Duolon and Shenwu gather to reflect on the tournament. Shen is livid at their loss, screaming into the distance as he vows to head out to set straight who the strongest is before leaving the two behind. Ash asks Duolon what he intends to do now, but Duolon senses the presence of none other than Ron, who is actually Duolon's father. Feeling that Ron is near, Duolon decides to leave Ash behind too and investigate his father's actions. Now alone, Ash decides now is the time to put the finishing touches on a scheme he has planned. Unsuccessful in winning another tournament, the Japan team gathered to discuss the competition before leaving. To Shingo's surprise, Benimaru and Daimon praise Shingo for his performance in the tournament. The praise slowly goes to Shingo's head, however, as he claims that he was able to use the Kusanagi flame despite Benimaru and Daimon's attempts to prove otherwise. Full of confidence and delusions of grandeur, Shingo then decides to shed his role as Kyo's student and instead claim himself as Kyo's rival. As Shingo begins to declare himself as being even better than his new rival, Kyo himself appears behind Shingo, though the latter is unaware of it. Kyo decides to make his presence aware to Shingo, who panics as he tries to convince Kyo his prior boasting was just a joke. Benimaru and Daimon watch as Kyo beats up Shingo using his real flames, declaring that no matter how good he gets, Shingo will always be Shingo. Having performed well in the tournament despite not winning, Takuma Sakizaki reads the newspaper as he comments on the Art of Fighting team's performance in the competition. As he reads, he is suddenly attacked by a mysterious man who Takuma recognizes. As they return home, Ryo, Robert and Yuri enter the Sakazaki dojo to see Takuma on the floor. Upon the others gathering around him, Takuma tells Ryo of a plot behind the KOF tournament before passing out. After Takuma is taken away in an ambulance, the three wonder who would attack their father and master and prepare to plan for a big battle. King Mai and Blue Mary gather one last time before heading home, but they are blinded by the passing Sky Noah. Having been knocked unconscious due to being blinded, Mai dreams of Andy Bogard saving her. As Mai dreams of Andy finally proposing to her, Blue Mary is woken up by her dog Anton as King stands over her. As Mary and King try to figure out what happened, they decide to not wake Mai, who continues to dream of Andy. King asks Mary for investigation into the tournament bore any fruit, but though Mary was able to gather some intel, she lost her lead before she could chase it. Deciding that something creepy is going on, Mary and King are interrupted by Mai, who keeps dreaming of Andy. After the tournament, the Outlaw team lament on losing their target, but theorise that no one should oppose Geese anymore. Gato notes that there's no trace of a certain person, but before he can explain anything, he and Billy are suddenly attacked by Yamazaki. Having wondered when he was going to turn on them, Billy prepares to face Yamazaki as Gato, tired of working with degenerate criminals, leads the two to their fight. Having not encountered each other during the tournament, Kyo and Iori prepare to face each other one-on-one after the conclusion of the competition. However, they sense a disturbance with the Orochi seal and abandon their fight to investigate it. Upon arriving at the Orochi seal, the two find it deserted except for Chizuru, who has come to after being cut off from Botan's control, and is no longer accompanied by her deceased sister Maki, who is simply an apparition made by the Yata Mirror. Kyo notices that Chizuru is wounded from her bout with the K- team, but she shrugs off the injuries being minor despite Maki's wounds having also appeared on her. As Chizuru explains that Mukai and Botan aim to kill off the Kagura lineage in order to break the Orochi seal, she is suddenly attacked by Ash Crimson, who tells Chizuru that her power is no longer hers alone to possess. Telling Chizuru that she will become his power, Ash reaches inside Chizuru and pulls out the Yata Mirror, taking it for himself. As Ash tosses Chizuru aside where she falls into Kyo's arms, Ash declares that Iori's sacred treasure, the Yasakani Jewel, will be the one he steals next. Iori laughs at the idea of him serving Ash and tries to attack him, but the mysterious young man teleports behind Iori and taunts him one last time before vanishing with the Yata Mirror. With Chizuru incapacitated, the Yata Mirror stolen and the Orochi seal now broken, a livid Kyo vows to hunt down Ash, Orochi and those from the past. The Orochi seal is broken. Its import was deep and dark. It transformed hope in the world to nothing but despair. Fate repeating its cycle, a destiny that engulfs all. Whether a thread of hope remains cannot be told. The siege goes on. It's been some time since the events of the King of Fighters 2003 tournament that saw the mysterious group known as Those from the Past hijack the event by manipulating Chizuru Kagura into helping them break the Orochi seal. After the K-Dash team defeated her and Mukai, a member of Those from the Past, Chizuru's sacred treasure, the Yata Mirror, was stolen by the enigmatic Ash Crimson, who incapacitated Chizuru before promising to steal Iori's sacred treasure next. With Ash having vanished and Orochi's seal now broken, the remaining holders of the sacred treasures, Kyo Kusanagi and Iori Yagami, are forced to put their search of Ash on hold when a new King of Fighters tournament is announced. Once again hosted by Rose Bernstein, daughter of Rugal Bernstein and brother of Adelheid Bernstein, the biggest change is the abandoning of the year put at the end of each tournament, with the unusually long wait between competitions being the cause. Now titled KOF 11 due to it being the 11th tournament since the one first hosted by Rugal in '94, the rules of the tournament remain the same as the previous tournament. Though there is no explicit reason, multiple teams receive drastic shakeups in terms of participants, the most of any KOF tournament to date. With his brother Andy Bogard training his student Hokurumaru and his friend Joe Agashi training for an upcoming Muay Thai tournament, Terry Bogard is left without a team for the first time since the '94 tournament. While searching for potential teammates, Terry comes across an old friend in Kim Kapuan, who tends to once again enter the tournament with his criminal students Chang and Choi. However, perhaps desperate for a break from Kim's intense sense of pride and justice, Chang and Choi manage to convince Kim that he should enjoy himself for once and join up with Terry instead of trying to rehabilitate them. Happy that his students have matured, Kim agrees and joins up with Terry. Desperate for a third member, Terry is left with no choice but to call up an old acquaintance, a DJ and dancer known as Duck King. Duck King accepts Terry's offer and joins up with him and Kim to form the new Fatal Fury team. After their father Takuma was attacked at the end of the 2003 tournament, and with their friend Robert Garcia needing to urgently head home to deal with an important family business matter, siblings Ryo Sakazaki and Yuri Sakazaki were forced to call on their old friend King in order to fill the slot for their team, making up this year's Art of Fighting team. To the Sakazaki's shock, they discovered that a rival team was also entered this year's tournament. Consisting of Iji Kisaragi, Kasumi Todo and Malin, the three combined their mutual hatred and dislike of the Sakazaki family to form the anti-Kyokugen Ryu team. Due to a sudden outburst of the Riot of the Blood after their victory in the previous tournament, Leona Haiden was pulled out of the Ikari Warriors by her adopted father Haiden due to suffering emotional trauma due to her injuring her allies. Replacing her in the tournament is Whip, who returns to the Ikari Warriors after leaving them to defeat Nests with her brother K-Dash in the conclusion of the 2000 tournament. Joining up with Ralph Jones and Clark Still, the three head out once again as the Ikari Warriors. With Whip rejoining the Ikari Warriors, she is replaced by Cooler Diamond, who joins K-Dash and Maxima to form the K-Dash team. Still haunted by Mukai's words at the end of the 2003 tournament, K-Dash wonders if he can surpass his fate as the second Kusanagi Flame and carve his own identity away from Kyo. After being forced to make up a new team in the 2003 tournament, Athena Asamiya is pleased to reform the Psycho Soldier team with her friend Kensu, who returns after a year of training with a stronger hold on his powers given to him by the Dragon Spirit. The three are joined by newcomer Momoko, who is also capable of using Psycho Power. Debuting in the tournament is B. Janae, who requests the help of T-Zoc and Gato, with T-Zoc agreeing for the heart of the competition, and Gato due to B. Janae claiming to have information on the whereabouts of Gato's father. Janae herself, though, only is interested in the monetary gain from the tournament, and uses the two to form the Mark of the Wolves team in order to gain the coveted prize money. After being hired to investigate the mysterious force behind the previous tournament, Blue Mary is hired again to look into the breaking of the Orochi seal and meets up with Vanessa, who happens to be an acquaintance of Mary's and is also looking into those from the past. The two decide to enter the tournament with Ramon, who responds to Vanessa's request for help, with the three forming the Agents team. With Chizuru unable to fight without the Yata Mirror, the three Sacred Treasures team is unable to be reformed. With Kyo and Yori willing to work together in order to stop Ash and fix the Orochi seal, albeit reluctantly, Chizuru is forced to rely on none other than Shingo Yabuki to fill her role as a peacemaker between the two volatile fighters. Though Kyo and Yori at first refuse to allow Shingo to help them, they eventually relent and allow him to join the two. The three make up the Kusanagi Yagami team and enter the tournament on the hunt for Ash and those from the past. After leaving Ash following the 2003 tournament's conclusion, Jewel discovers Ash's actions and true objective in stealing the Sacred Treasures. Wanting to punish Ash for his treachery, Jewel is suddenly summoned to France along with Benimaru and Kaido, where the two meet a woman called Elizabeth Blanctorche. Elizabeth surprises the two with her knowledge on Ash's actions during the previous tournament, as well as Ron's betrayal of the Hisoku clan. Revealing that she has known Ash since childhood, Elizabeth offers to enter the KOF 11 tournament with Jewel and Benimaru in order to stop Ash and Ron. The two agree and set out for the tournament with Elizabeth, making up the new rivals team. Meanwhile, Ash Crimson returns from lurking in the shadows since the 2003 tournament, where he meets with Shenwu, who shows no interest or care in Ash's theft of the Yata Mirror. Ash introduces Shen to Oswald, a mysterious hitman who Ash requested join them in the 11 tournament after hearing rumours about him. With each having their own agenda, the Uneasy Trio set out for the tournament as the Ash team. Though there are several other characters featured in the King of Fighters 11, most are considered either non-canon or not important to the game's plot, so they won't be mentioned unless they feature in a canon team's ending. These characters are Gai Tendo, Sho Hayate, Jiazu, Silba, Mai Shiranui, Geese Howard, Mr. Big, Robert Garcia, Tung Furu, and Hotaru Futaba. The King of Fighters 11 tournament at first goes off without a hitch, with numerous teams advancing and being eliminated as the competition goes on. Meanwhile, two mysterious men named Shion and Magaki meet in the Pure White area, with the two being members of those from the past. The two discuss the ongoing tournament, with Magaki showing concern over whether or not Orochi will respond to their attempts to awaken it, saying that if it doesn't respond, everything will be in vain. Shion promises to awaken Orochi himself, to which Magaki shows a general lack of interest in, though he warns Shion to not betray him. Shion doesn't respond and leaves, which causes Magaki to laugh to himself. The tournament continues, with the rivals team and the Kusanagi Yagami team being the only ones still in play. After advancing far into the tournament, the rivals team meet Rose and Adelheid Bernstein. As with the 2003 tournament, Rose pits her brother against the winning team, where, similar to the 2003 tournament, Adelheid is once again defeated. Rose is livid at her brother's second loss, but Adelheid allows the rival team to leave unharmed, where they are declared the winner of the KOF 11 tournament, due to the whereabouts of the Kusanagi Yagami team being unknown. As Adelheid stares out of Sky Noah's window, Rose harshly comments on the vulgarity of the rivals team, saying that just thinking about them makes her sick. As Rose continues to insult them, Adelheid loudly tells her to stop, much to Rose's shock. Adelheid commends the rivals team on their ability to fight, stating that they deserve their respect. Adelheid apologises to Rose for his outburst, saying that he is tired before leaving to rest. As Rose is left alone, she shows a growing hatred over her brother's choice to scold her, saying that she didn't do anything wrong. Suddenly, a familiar group of strings appears around Rose, and she promises to not forget Adelheid's insult against her. Nearby, those from the past's Botan begins to laugh at Rose's ability to be easily manipulated, revealing that Rose and the entire KOF 11 tournament was also organised by Botan and her group. With the tournament apparently concluded, this year's competitors once again prepare to leave before going their separate ways. After being eliminated earlier, the Ash team begin to head home. As they walk, Ash points out that Shenwu wanted to fight strong opponents, while Oswald had actually entered the tournament in search of pills that Ash had promised him. Shen is confused when Ash tells Oswald that the pills he seeks are made in Shanghai, but the company that make them won't give him any until he kills their enemy, Shenwu. Oswald and Shen fail to see through Ash's lie and begin a fight to the death as Ash leaves to continue his scheme. After being knocked out of the tournament earlier, the Art of Fighting team agree to celebrate the end of another tournament at a fancy restaurant. As Ryo and King wait for Yuri to arrive, King hopes that she isn't trying to set them up on a date. Unbeknownst to Ryo and King, the anti-Kyokugen Ryu team hide behind a table with the hopes of ambushing the Art of Fighting team. While Iji and Malin bicker over Malin's info being potentially wrong and Kasumi wondering where her father is, a waiter arrives to serve Ryo and King, who sit in an uncomfortable silence. King and Ryo realise that the waitress is none other than Yuri in disguise, even though she tries to deny it. They are joined by another waiter, who's revealed to be Robert, also in disguise. Iji and the others spot Robert and Yuri as Malin shows her dislike of Yuri after she called her fighting style cowardly. King and Ryo prepare to leave the restaurant when they are joined by the manager, who's actually Takuma, who wears his Mr. Karate mask. As Ryo bickers with his family and friends, King realises that everything from Takuma being attacked to Robert leaving for a family emergency was a plan done by the Sakizakis as a way to get herself and Ryo together on a date. When Takuma passes Ryo a hotel key with the idea of him and King using it for the night, a frustrated and embarrassed King explodes just as the anti-Kyokugen Ryu team make their attack, but are caught in King's explosive fury along with Ryo, Yuri, Takuma and Robert. As they make their way home after the tournament, Athena thanks Kensu and Momoko for their help during the competition. Kensu credits Chin, Bao and their former striker Baitang for the year they spent training for his increase in strength, wishing the three had lived to see it even though they aren't dead. Kensu becomes embarrassed when Momoko states that despite his training, he doesn't seem that strong, with him claiming that it's best to not use his power or else he'd end up like Rugal or Nests. As the three continue their journey home, they are observed by Ron and Misty, who are joined by three mysterious allies, as well as Lin, who joins Ron despite spending the 2000 and 2001 tournaments hunting Ron down for his betrayal of the Zoku clan. Ron congratulates Kensu on being able to control the Dragon Spirit after only 1 year of training, and tells him to keep working hard as all of Kensu's efforts will all go to Ron in his quest for power. Despite still being in the running for the tournament, the Kusanagi Yagami team find themselves split off from the rest of the tournament. The three discover a destroyed part of the tournament where they are greeted by Shion. Shion ignores Kyo's questions of if he is linked to Mukai or not, and instead challenges them to a fight. Despite his deadly spear in hand, Shion is defeated by Kyo, Yori and Shingo. As he lays defeated, Shion shows anger at Orochi still not having awakened, as Megaki feared. Shion once again ignores Kyo's questions and states that now that Mukai has broken the Orochi seal, Orochi will appear again in the world. Suddenly, a portal opens up behind Shion as Megaki's hand comes out and grabs him by the head. Shion curses Megaki for betraying him first and is pulled into the portal to his apparent death. Megaki then appears before the three and quotes Mukai's plan on giving the power of Orochi to their master. Planning on giving Kyo, Yori and Shingo to Orochi, Megaki transforms into a hideous monster and transports the three to a hidden lair where he intends to fight them. Despite his horrific appearance and intense power, Kyo, Yori and Shingo are able to defeat Megaki, who, like Mukai, shows no damage or fatigue from the fight. Despite this, Megaki takes the three back to the ruined arena where they fought Shion, while pondering on what it will take to actually awaken Orochi. Promising to get a rematch the next time they meet, Megaki prepares to leave through a portal, but Orochi seems to begin its awakening. Megaki laughs manically at his plan finally coming to fruition, but is suddenly pierced by Shion's spear, killing him. As the portal closes and Megaki's body drops to the floor, Shingo asks Kyo what happened, but neither Iori or Kyo have any answers to the multitude of questions that are still left open. With no business left in the tournament, Kyo, Iori and Shingo head home as the KOF 11 tournament comes to a turbulent end. After Megaki's death, the agents team consisting of Blue Mary, Vanessa and Ramon are picked up by a military helicopter where they meet Vanessa's teammate Seth, who was picked up ahead of time. As they travel to an unknown destination, the four bicker about who they're going to meet. They eventually head for a battleship as Haiden prepares to greet them, with the commander in fact being the employee who asked them to look into the tournament. A member of Haiden's team questions the idea of bringing civilians on board the Ikari battleship, to which Haiden says that their presence on the ship was unavoidable as they're needed for the next phase of the Ikari warriors' plan, though he hints at potentially using them as bait for those from the past. A couple of hours after the agent team's arrival at the Ikari battleship, the K-Dash team are brought on board as well, where they sit in a large briefing room. Cooler spots Whip and the rest of the Ikari warriors at the front of the briefing room as Haiden begins giving a rundown on the events of the tournament. Cooler and Whip wave to each other as Haiden reveals that they were able to retrieve Megaki's body, which they currently have on board. Haiden continues his briefing where he reveals that by studying Megaki's body, they have determined that him, as well as possibly the rest of those from the past, are not human. Suddenly, Cooler feels an unwelcome presence on the ship as one of the Ikari battleships is attacked by those from the past. The lights are knocked out as the Ikari warriors scramble to get the power back on. When the lights eventually come back on, Haiden is attacked by two people. Haiden tells his forces not to panic as he attempts to question the two on how they infiltrated the battleship. The two state that getting in was easy, and that while they owe Megaki nothing, they have to take back his body. They tell Haiden that the sinking of one of their battleships was a warning before mysteriously disappearing. Having been dealt a direct attack from those from the past, Haiden tells Ralph and Ikari warriors to continue on as planned and that he's counting on them to close the case for good. As they return home, Iori begins reacting strangely as the Riot of the Blood activates within him. As with Leona in the previous tournament, this Riot of the Blood is more intense than usual, leading to Iori breaking Shingo's arm and severely injuring Kyo. The brutally beaten Shingo watches helplessly as Iori prepares to kill an unconscious Kyo, but is soon joined by none other than Ash, who taunts Shingo in his current predicament. Ash approaches Iori and gauges how far along into the Riot of the Blood he is. Deciding to take his chance, Ash steals the Yasakani Jewel from Iori, stopping the Riot of the Blood within him and rendering him unconscious. Ash taunts Shingo one last time, telling him to go home before he catches a cold as he prepares to leave, now with 2 of the 3 sacred treasures. Before Ash can leave, however, he is approached by the rivals team. Ash nervously asks Elizabeth why she isn't off celebrating her victory, as Benimaru realises that Kyo, Iori and Shingo lay injured on the ground. Elizabeth asks Ash if he's forgotten a mission a certain party gave him. Ash admits he forgot the mission, which upsets Elizabeth. Realising that power is all he understands, Elizabeth states that there's no point in reasoning with Ash. Ash tells Elizabeth that she can't bully him anymore as he's no longer the person he used to be, due to him now possessing the same purple flames that Iori wields, given to him by the Yasakani Jewel. Elizabeth is shocked to see that Ash is now tainted by the same Orochi power that the Yagami clan were, as Ash tells her that it'll help the both of them if she backs off and leaves them alone. Ash is suddenly surrounded by an angry Benimaru and Duolon, who ask Ash if he really thinks they're just going to leave him alone. Ash tries to worm his way out of the situation by telling them that Kyo and Shingo were injured when he got there, which, while true, is not enough to convince the rival team. The rivals team prepare to face off against Ash, but unwilling to fight outnumbered, Ash uses the Yata Mirror to vanish. Before leaving, Ash asks the others to give Kyo a message when he wakes up, tell him he's next. With Ash now in possession of 2 of the sacred treasures used to seal Orochi, Elizabeth swears on the Blank Torch name to not let Ash get away with whatever he has planned.
We await your return, warrior.